Hello, dear friends. This is Sofya Dorinskaya with you, President of the International Bureau for Human Rights in Mental Health and head of the Sofya Dorinskaya Center for Medical Information. Today, I want to talk with you about a rather difficult topic, and I hope that several aspects that I want to discuss with you today will be clear to you. I will try to make it simple. And of course, if you have any questions about the topic of this video, please write to me, and we will clarify these points together. So today I want to talk about why psychiatric substances work the way they do, what problems people face when they want to stop using psychoactive substances, and what is actually the root cause of a person's poor condition. For example, a person feels unwell, has scattered attention, and psychiatrists prescribe Ritalin for them. This substance is methylphenidate. It is banned in Russia, but in some countries around the world, including the USA, there in Israel, and I think in Australia, this substance is permitted. But it is considered an antidepressant, and in general, antidepressants work in a similar way. So a person feels unwell, and then they take an antidepressant and they start to feel better. What do antidepressants affect? Antidepressants in one way or another act on the body's reward system. What is that? The body's reward system consists of biological substances, neurotransmitters that create feelings of joy, feelings of pleasure, right? Well, for example, one such substance is dopamine. And so when a person feels really bad, when they feel absolutely terrible, that's like a big dislike. They take an antidepressant, a substance that in various ways, as I said before, some directly influence the production of these happiness mediators. Some block reuptake, some work with receptors. The exact mechanism isn't so important here. The point is that a person's dopamine levels in the blood are artificially, synthetically increased, and the person seems to feel better. As soon as the person stops taking these pills, they start having problems. The person develops depression, even to the point of having suicidal thoughts. A person may experience a state where life feels unbearable. A person may even have hysterical breakdowns, feeling just how bad things are. It may seem to the person that they may feel like they're about to die right now, at this very moment. So what is happening at this moment? And what's happening at this moment is actually quite simple. In order to provide an extremely high level of dopamine or any other happiness neurotransmitter, to stimulate this happiness system in the body needs to gather absolutely all of its resources, search every nook and cranny, and synthesize this extremely high level of dopamine. When the body finally ceases the intense process of driving itself to produce this dopamine, the body returns to its natural and original state of being. And it begins to clearly perceive exactly what kind of damage what kind of extensive harm and deterioration have been inflicted upon the body's individual cells. You need to understand that nutrients, when a person's reward system is being stimulated like this, only destroy specific organs after prolonged use. It all starts with the destruction of cells. And if and when a person stops taking this pill, they experience cellular pain, and a substance called prostaglandin is released, which is a mediator of pain. And just imagine every single individual cell in the body, excuse the expression, begins to cry out and scream that it has been severely damaged, that it is feeling absolutely terrible, that it is desperately lacking essential nutrients, and that it is now on the very verge of survival. When exactly this kind of pain starts affecting a person's body, the person can't really identify what exactly hurts. And this is what is associated with an unbearable state of existence, severe depression, and the feeling that the person is going to die very soon. This is connected to apathy. The person's activity decreases. They can only lie on the couch. The person experiences extreme weakness. Their muscles hurt, their bones hurt. and it feels like the whole body is in pain. But if you start examining the person, if a doctor examines them, for example, you won't be able to find anything specific, no concrete damage in the body. And so, with these kinds of fluctuations, if this continues for a long enough time, eventually specific organs in the person's body begin to deteriorate, the nervous tissue starts to break down, and the endocrine system begins to deteriorate. And gradually, little by little, since the body is made up of cells, the cells are the first to suffer. And slowly the person begins to deteriorate. The person starts to get sick, and ultimately they die at a young age. This is exactly why people experience severe conditions after discontinuing various psychiatric substances, antidepressants, antipsychotics, and so on. And this is the first, so to speak, stumbling block, the first difficulty that awaits you when you stop taking psychoactive substances. The next difficulty is that if you, roughly speaking, endure this pain, which can be acute at first, but then gradually subsides, and the body somehow stabilizes one way or another, and the person starts eating something. But if a person in this state decides to fast, then another psychotic episode is just around the corner. But if a person somehow manages to come out of this state, the next unpleasant thing that awaits them is a disruption of the endocrine system. And it must be said that this is specifically related to neuroleptics. One prominent scientific theory suggests that schizophrenia develops in individuals whose dopamine system is somehow significantly heightened, chronically overexcited, or hyperactive in some way. As I already mentioned earlier, dopamine is one of the primary neurotransmitters responsible for feelings of happiness. It is widely believed that people suffering from schizophrenia, according to various independent scientific studies I have personally looked at, exhibit highly specific and complex physiological disturbances within their internal dopamine system. Both conventional first-generation and newer atypical antipsychotic medications are specifically designed and formulated to work toward reducing the overall activity of this dopamine system, thereby artificially and systematically disrupting what is currently considered to be the maladaptive or improper biological regulation of the human body in relation to its dopamine levels. And all antipsychotics in one way or another affect the dopamine system as well as related neurotransmitters. So what is the issue here? When you start suppressing dopamine, it is very closely linked to endocrine regulation by a hormone called prolactin. And here's what we observe. People who take antipsychotics have their prolactin levels, that is, this hormone, increase by an incredible amount. So, when a person decides to stop taking their psychoactive substances, not only does their body start to balance dopamine levels, but after some time, one way or another, the body also begins to regulate prolactin levels. And this is the next big challenge awaiting someone who has already used antipsychotics. Because while changes in the hormonal background by themselves can lead to psychosis, both an increase in prolactin and a decrease in prolactin. For example, as I said before, we talked to a lot of people, and we had a case where a young man was diagnosed with high prolactin precisely as a result of taking antipsychotics, and as soon as he was given a pill to lower his prolactin level, he immediately lost his mind. This happened literally within just, an hour, maybe an hour and a half. As soon as the hormone level started to drop, the person exhibited psychosis. And this is the next, so to speak, problem that you will encounter. Let's think about it. After all, for some reason, no one has wondered why the body starts to experience this imbalance in the dopamine systems. It would be logical to ask why the body changes the activity of the dopamine systems in the first place. So this means that there is some underlying problem in the body. And the human body, it lives on its own, so to speak. It wants to feel good, and the body starts to increase its sensitivity to dopamine in order, roughly speaking, to at least experience some pleasure from life, because the body cannot live in constant pain. But for some reason, in modern psychiatry, no one ever considers this particular cause. Why does the body increase its sensitivity to these dopamine systems? What is happening? Now let's recall the work of the psychiatrist from the first half of the 20th century, Vladimir Nikolaevich Myasishchev, who spoke to us about the formation of predispositions to mental illnesses. And one of the aspects is vitamin deficiencies. These are the very same nutrient deficiencies when a cell simply doesn't have the resources either to reproduce itself or to maintain its metabolic rate at the proper level. The cell has no resources, it breaks down and it produces that very prostaglandin. And if there are a lot of such cells, the body senses that the body doesn't feel well. And this pain is not differentiated yet, you could say. It makes the body work on its reward systems, on the dopamine, serotonin systems, and so on. Increasing the sensitivity of dopamine receptors, maybe somewhere, using, well, a reasonable resource, yes, increasing the level of dopamine, and so on. So once again, we return to the fundamentals. Once again, we return to the works of Vladimir Nikolaevich Myasishchev, who says that you should look for the cause in reasonable situations, look for a rational cause. So one of the rational causes that we observe and whose elimination leads to a dramatic improvement in a person's condition is the identification and correction of vitamin deficiencies, the identification and correction of nutrient deficiencies. I can tell you this from my own personal experience. Virtually everyone who has come to us, especially people who have a long history of restrictive starvation diets, all of them exhibit signs of severe psychoses. So it is clear that prolonged starvation is another major factor. These starvation diets, vegetarian diets, and honestly, I'll tell you, vegan diets as well, all eventually lead to severe psychoses for one simple reason, because the body cells are destroyed and they lack the resources to function normally. That's why, precisely why, if you feel unwell, you go to doctors and nothing specific is found. Most likely you have a deficiency of nutrients, so-called vitamin deficiencies, which need to be identified and properly replenished. That is exactly why people who are on psychoactive substances feel much better when they start taking carefully selected vitamin and mineral regimens, as the body then gains the resources it needs to cope. As is already clear, with the toxic substances that people take to somehow give themselves a boost, to somehow stimulate themselves into a better state, and of course, people who take neuroleptics or antidepressants for a very long time. I want to tell you that I understand that in today's world, we are used to everything happening very quickly. We see how young people, 16 years old, suddenly become millionaires. We're used to the fact that when we feel bad, when we have a headache, we take a pill and bam, the headache is gone. We know that antibiotics exist. When someone gets a bacterial infection, they're given antibiotics. Bam. After 7 days, everything is great. So when we sit down and talk about the complex process of eliminating nutritional deficiencies, especially when we are discussing the most severe and damaging toxic effects, particularly those that have persisted within the body for many years, thinking that every single issue will be completely resolved in just a month, 2, 3, or even 4. I will be perfectly honest with you. Believing that is simply being quite naive. Because life and nature are such that to build something takes a very long time. To carry, give birth to, and raise a child requires a lot of effort and a lot of time. But to shoot and kill a person takes just a split second. To build a house takes a great deal of effort. You need architects, you need foremen, you need building substances, those things. I forgot the word. There it is, building materials. There you go. But you can destroy a house in just a few minutes. You carefully set a powerful explosive device and then it is completely obliterated. So, if you truly want to fully recover your physical form, if you want to reclaim the life you once knew, I can tell you that you must arm yourself with an incredibly strong sense of determination. You need to arm yourself with patience. And we always, with the people who go through our curation, we always explain in detail what is happening to them, because understanding what is happening is one of the key aspects of patience. You understand what is happening to your body, you understand that there is no catastrophe, and that your body is simply starting to gradually restore its functions. Somewhere nerve transmission has resumed, and suddenly the body has detected some damage there. But this is a good thing, because only after full innervation is restored can the body repair a certain group of cells. When innervation is severed, it is impossible to do this. For example, if a person's spinal cord is severed and they stop walking, their muscles will atrophy. And even if you try to help them exercise, the muscles will still atrophy for one simple reason. When innervation is absent, the organ dies after a while. The same thing happens to the human body when psychiatry, using psychoactive substances, severs the body's innervation. And gradually, little by little, the person goes to their grave. To turn this situation around, you need to have very strong nerves. You need to have strong determination. You need to address your own deficiencies. And you must constantly nourish the body so that it has the resources to recover. And you need to understand that nature never does anything quickly. But the best part is that if nature does something, it does it thoroughly. That's why you can trust nature. This was Sofya Dorinskaya with you. All the best. Goodbye.